Hey boys and girls, Doug Giles here. It's Warriors Rich.
And Wildmen, what's happening, Doug?
Well, Rich, I'm a little, how shall I put it? I'm recovering. I think I got COVID-49 last week. And which was really fun, especially when we had this, another 100-year freeze. That, dude, you ought to see our neighborhood, man. It looks like an F2 tornado just came in and just did damage. There's trees down all over the place. Which I'm doing a series in the Book of Mark at Liberty Fellowship, the church I pastor, and I nearly postponed the series on Mark, Rich, and did a message that could have been more relevant than my message on Mark. And the title that I was working on is When God Prunes Your Tree. Or maybe,
that's nice.
or maybe this, prune your tree or God will. And, woof, man, you ought to, so you've been to the place a couple of times and stuff.
Yep.
We have on our property, I think we have 100 oak trees and some real monster ones and stuff. Dude, you should have seen them. They're all just freaking sagging under ice all the way to the ground. Like the big tree that we have out in the front yard, that thing, I've never prayed for a tree before, Rich. I prayed for my trees. Because that tree goes, it's part of the value of the property. And dude, this thing was just, oh God, it was on the ground. And then boom, it sprung back to life. And so last week was very interesting. They're doing massive cleanup around here. Again, you ought to see this place. It's like freaking heavy artillery came into our subdivision and just started. Well, it did it all over Central Texas. Just mowed down trees like nobody's business.
Wow.
Shut down roads. I mean, they're freaking trees all over the major thoroughfares and stuff. It was jacked up, man. I thought Texas was a badass state, Rich. I was wrong. Maybe we need tougher trees. I think we ought to import some stuff from Ottawa or New Hampshire because these they didn't fare well under that ice storm. So
I'll tell you what, it was rough out here too, Doug. Yesterday after church, it was mid-70s, sunny. Started playing golf with my son and his wife yesterday, and then a little breeze kicked up and just made it a little more perfect. And I was like, man, again in August, I won't be talking like that. So, but right now it's beautiful.
Hey man, when I lived in Miami and we would go through our brutal 80-degree winters and stuff, I would always post on Facebook before Eric Zuckerberg banned me, pictures of me, Rich, suffering by our pool, smoking a cigar and working on my tan. So
I like it. There's a famous meme, and it's a plastic lawn chair that's fallen over in the yard, and it says Arizona winners, and then it says we will rebuild.
You got to have stamina, man. When you get those
That's right.
Those dreamy temperatures, man, you just got to ford through it. Hey, speaking of ford through it, we're looking at a list, and I can't remember how long it's been since we touched on this topic. But Joe Matera, he's Jason Matera's pops, and I've met him a couple times. Met him at Jason's wedding. Great Christian minister. Always has interesting columns, but this piece that he did in early January, that if Christ was tooling around today, he'd frickin' get canceled. I completely fell in love with it, pitched it over to you, and we're going through his 7 reasons why Christ would be canceled. I think you could add another 7 times 7, Rich, to how Christ would be so untoward in regards to our particular cultural penchants that have run way far amok in regards to what we would tolerate from the Son of Man. But he's got 7 zingers here, and we looked at Jesus was not received because of his physical appearance. It was not impressive. People forget that, man, because we make Jesus, Rich, look like Ted Nugent back when he was like 30 or something like that.
Yeah, or an Italian model.
Exactly, and a gay Italian model, by the way.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, why does all the paintings, back in the Renaissance make Jesus, look like a bearded woman? It's like, well, here's the reason why. Gay popes hired gay artists who hired gay models to depict Jesus and the boys. Ergo, that's why They all look like
Yep.
Kate Hudson, with the 5 o'clock shadow and stuff.
Well, Isaiah 53 says something different than that. It said he had no comeliness or no beauty that we should desire him. So he looked like an average person.
Yeah,
That
common
was the
dude.
whole purpose. Yep.
Common Jewish cat. I grew up in.
He didn't come to redeem only the supermodels. He just came as an average-looking person. But not today, man. If you want to be a celebrity preacher.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think so. As you well know, it's skinny jeans are a must. Also, way too tight polo shirts, Armani especially. You must have one of those.
Yep.
And the prerequisite haircut for the Church of the New Groove pastor is, Rich, it's got to be a Tommy Sheldon, Peaky Blinders, that kind of haircut. It's required. So Jesus wasn't some Brad Pitt type dude. You weren't going to look at him. It's like, oh my God, I'll follow you off a cliff right now. Also, he wasn't received because he was this thing, Richard, called sober-minded.
Yep.
I had this youth pastor, I told you this, man, or college pastor. He said, I had a vision the other day of Jesus, and Jesus was sitting on top of an upright piano, and he had on Daisy Duke shorts and no shirt, and he was just jamming with the kiddos.
That dude needs counseling. That's disgusting. I would literally tell somebody like that, you're an idiot. You're a freak.
Right.
That's not a vision. That's deep-rooted stuff that needs to be settled in counseling.
Yeah, man. That's some kind of Sam Smith.
Bizarro.
That's some Sam Smith stuff right there.
Yeah, don't get me started on that.
Ooh, Lord. So,
Hey, I will say this about Sam Smith and the devil costumes and the red leather and Satan worship and the fire. And he said Christians might be angry. I'm not angry as a Christian. I'm happy. You want to know why? Because they put non-binary, gay, transgender, Satan, satanic worship all together and admitted it. And I'm good. So I just put next to that facts. And then also finally. I've been saying that all along.
Rich,
no problem.
Rich, you missed one other addition that I found. It was I don't know. I would say it's more than quasi interesting. I would say it's real interesting, and all of that mess was brought to you by Pfizer.
Yeah, I heard that.
No, it's on the frickin' screen after this whole devil festival with Sam Smith. It was brought to you by Pfizer.
And Doug, why is Pfizer advertising?
Well, if you're going to do something demonic, sorry, I got to send a text to Mary Margaret. She's doing something important, and she's forgotten that I'm doing a podcast right now. Hello, Mary.
That's not important.
No.
I'm going to put my phone on silent right now.
Hold on. I'm going to tell her right now. Hey, Mary, period. I'm doing a podcast, period. Remember? Question mark. All right, here we go. So yeah, you get this whole satanic mess. Sam Smith, Grammys, brought to you by Pfizer, and again, just like you, it's like, hey, Sammy boy, no, I'm not terrified about what you did. I'm not scared of you. I'm not scared of Satan himself. And here's an FYI to Mr. Double S. I hope you enjoy what you have right now, because when you take the big dirt nap, if you don't repent, this hell that you think is going to be a party with all your gay buddies and you guys traipsing around trying to mock and scare Christians, it's going to evaporate in a nanosecond, and hell is not going to be a good place to be. And
nope.
So I hope he repents, Rich. When I look at that kind of stuff, it's like, oh man, you think it's so fun right now, but I'm telling you, 1 nanosecond after expiration and you spring off this mortal coil, eternal damnation. I don't think you're going to have the props and the accolades and the dance costumes and all that other stuff. So good luck.
Yeah, and I just saw another thing this morning, and since we're on the topic, they're redefining things and terms to find them more acceptable. We know that, we've talked about that before, but Leonardo DiCaprio, 48 years old, is dating a 19-year-old Israeli model. And it's a new thing that happens. Rich guys date young models. It's never happened before, so totally new. And the person that said that and said, so a guy who's approaching 50 is dating a teenager. We need to stop making jokes and just call it pedophilia. And it's like, well, actually, it's not pedophilia under any definition of the word, because that person is an adult who's 19, not even over 18. She's over 19. She could be 2 days before 20. We don't know. They're going to work it, right? She's an adult. She's post-pubescent. She is 100% woman. She's not a child. She's young. She's not young. If she was 19 and the 23-year-old was dating her, nobody would care, right? Or another 19-year-old. So because he has money and he can, you're mad. That's not pedophilia. But what they want to do is they want to try to say, see how it is? They're not arguing against him. They're trying to get us to connect that in our mind and say that it's okay, so that they can say, well, see, what we're doing is not that much different. And it's way different. And, you know, I mean, if he's not a Christian, there's no problem with that. It's just a rich guy with a young model. That's how the real world is, right?
Yeah, you look at John Knox, the famous Scottish reformer. You know, I went to Knox Theological Seminary. I went to Knox's home in Scotland, stood in the St. Giles Cathedral, where he prayed that God would damn Mary, Queen of Scots, and he did a year later. Old Johnny Knox, he married a 17-year-old girl at 52, you know?
Yep, and that was a different time. 17 was legal eagle, you know? Here in the States, that's obviously not legal, but
well,
it's just crazy.
I mean,
it wasn't a little girl.
Yeah, so anyway, let's get back to the list, man. Sorry to bring up the Sam Smith crap. And I really am, because that's a loathsome critter. And if you guys have any spare prayer time, you want to throw one up for Sam, I think he needs it. And
yeah, and if your kids are listening to that trash, unlisten to it.
Yeah, isn't it so fun?
By the way, the song, Doug, is called Unholy.
Right.
By the way.
Yeah. Again, good luck, Sammy. If you're listening,
accurate.
If you're listening, dude, enjoy it, because when it ends, and you haven't closed in and asked Christ for forgiveness, it ain't going to be the party that you and other stupid rock stars and singers think it's going to be. So anyway, Christ was sober-minded, and he wasn't some little social butterfly. He wasn't, ebullient all the time. He was somebody that would take you to places and conversations that most Christians fear to tread nowadays. And 3, he wasn't received because he spoke the truth and exposed religious hypocrisy. And we covered that in an epic podcast. And I think it's interesting, Rich, how when he did it, especially when he cleared the Pharisees out of the temple, it says that the children started singing his praises. And that word for children, it's a broad term that ranges anything from an adolescent to a late teen. So the young'uns, Rich, they love to see Christ go after the phony religious hucksters. And I think that's a juicy little Bible trivia nugget, if you will, which leads us to number 4. Rich, Christ was not received because he would not allow men to make him king and exalt him.
Yeah, boom.
So he wasn't a power grabber.
That's crazy. Nope. He didn't want title and positions. He wasn't trying to do that. And a lot of times, and the reality is that, I'll tell a story. I was at a meeting. I was a new Christian, been just a few years. And this old lady came in with this other really old lady playing a keyboard. And it was the leadership team from this church that I was attending. They asked me to come. And the lady started playing the keyboard. And the one lady's like, I'm going to prophesy right now. And I was like, okay, whatever. I'm cool. Anyway, she says, lift your hands to the Lord. So I'm sitting on a couch, I have my hands up. And then I hear her tell this guy, you've been rebuked 4 times for pornography use, and you have resisted that rebuke. And God has rebuked you from this person to this person and this person. And today you are being rebuked publicly and I was like looking at this guy and I was like, Jesus, if you got things to tell me, I'm good. Like, we could hook it up right now. You don't need to tell on me in front of everybody, right? And so then she's going down the line, prophet. And this lady was a prophet, man. She was bringing it on and saying also really good things to people. Very powerful. And then she grabbed me by my hand And she said, men are going to try to use you for their plans and their purposes, but stay close to God and do what he tells you to do. And I thought, oh, it's kind of generic. But I had no idea of where I would be going and what I would be doing to the people that I would work with. Doug, it proved to be true. I mean, 100%. And I remembered that, and it made me seek the Lord, and sometimes it was difficult because the things that were being offered were things that you would naturally want, right? But then you take Jesus, he's the Son of God, even though they don't recognize that. They can use him for their purposes, but he was about one purpose. He set his face like a flint. Yeah. I mean, he was going to the cross. There was only one way. The devil tried to give him another way. He's like, no way, bro. One way, one mission from my Father in heaven. And I think when I think of that right there, I think how often people allow themselves to be used for somebody else's plan other than God's.
Yeah, and like you said, you get, your typical minister, clawing, scraping, longing for titles and power and ambition.
Yeah.
And Christ wouldn't, it's like, I don't go for that, man. And we're going through the book of Mark and stuff, and several times we're like right in the middle of Mark 6. But I think it's like 3 times, man, already, and we're only in 6 chapters. Every time he does a power display, he raises Jairus' daughter from the dead. Mm-hmm. Heals a crippled dude's jacked up claw of a hand and stuff, and casts the devil out of some Miley virus chick, something like that. And he tells the people, pulls them aside afterwards, says, tell nobody about this.
Yep.
Rich, if you get pastors and they get some, it's like I laid hands on a girl the other day. She had a bunion, the size of a silver dollar, and it just, whoosh, it vanished. We'd never hear the frickin' end of it,
Yep.
There would be, pictures of him and the foot, and, it would just be on and on and on. And Christ wouldn't do it. He wouldn't post it on Instagram. He didn't have, people run and all of a sudden tell them that I'm a miracle worker. It's like, no, keep this on the down low. And
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just rambling, man. I'm high on
no,
Robitussin.
It's good. I'm with you. I was my former pastor from Colombia, Cesar Castellanos. He was going to Mongolia, and he asked me to go with him. And there's actually a huge movement in the Mongolian churches, all kinds of evangelism, people getting saved. It's really amazing. So he wanted me to go, but I got sick at that time. It was years ago, and I wasn't able to go. At those meetings, he prayed for a guy who had no eyeballs in his eye sockets.
Good Lord.
And he was healed.
Wow.
And he literally had eyeballs, and people started screaming. Freaking out, terrified. And Pastor Cesar's telling me about it, and he said, with the translator, he said, Rich, the most amazing thing happened. He said he came to church the next day, and he was feeling the chairs, feeling his way in the church. And I said, what happened? Can he not see? And they said, no, he doesn't know how to interpret what his eyes are seeing, and he is still navigating by the way that he knows to get around. Come on, bro. And I was like, how did I miss this meeting, And you know what? They didn't put it on television. They didn't put it on podcasts. They didn't, and it wasn't that they weren't so excited about it, because all the pastors that knew them, within those circles, they were all talking about it. But it was almost like it was too holy of a thing it was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Like, you could see the look on their face when they were telling the story. It was like, oh my God,
Rich, if I got my PhD, I don't think I would demand people call me, doctor. It's kind of like Dr. Evil. It's like, it's Dr. Evil. He said, I didn't spend 7 years in evil school for you to call me Mister. It's funny. It's like all of a sudden when you get the PhD, boom, there it goes onto your SIG line for your email and stationery. It's like, look at this. And, in the scripture, there's constant warning in Old Testament, New Testament about run away from that kind of frickin' stuff and that
Yeah.
self-exaltation. I mean, Paul's a frickin' doctor, and he said all this stuff that I accumulated from an academic
Yeah.
standpoint, he said, you know what? It's dung. It's scubalon. It's dog. You know what? And I think again, it's a cool thing to really, you know, in an unvarnished way, look at how Christ rolled. And you're not going to make me king. You're not going to make me part of your little frickin' troop. I'm not going to join you. You know, it's like you said, I'm laser focused on the mission set before me, and I'm not going to get into your little frickin' political zealot group or your
Right.
quasi-nauseous religious group. So again, that's why Christ is appealing, and a lot of ministers are
Yeah.
appalling nowadays. Also, Rich, secondly, number
Well,
five.
hold on one second.
Do it.
One second. I want to say one thing. When you know who you are, because Christ knew his identity, he didn't allow anyone to redefine that. He didn't allow the devil to do it. He didn't allow the religious people to do it. He didn't allow the people that loved him to do it. He knew who he was. And, you know, everybody wants to redefine you or give you a new identity to fit their purpose. But he didn't need anybody to make him king, because he's the King of Kings with a capital K. That's an eternal title. It wasn't given by man. Man doesn't have a say. Recognize it or not, he's the authority.
Word, brother. Point number five,
Yeah.
Matera said he was not received because he spent time with those hungry for God instead of power-hungry leaders.
Jeez. Dude.
Man, I've been guilty of this. You know, you've got to be guilty of it. I mean, it's like all of a sudden you see, you know, if I meet with this person and I, you know, sidle up to them, then they're going to, you know, take me to Zion and to my next level of glory. and then you walk right past the hungry disciple who's 21 and nobody wants their picture taken with them. And
Yeah, exactly.
Rich, at
Not Jesus.
60, dude, I don't want to be that retarded. Like I was in my 30s, it was like, you know, hobnobbing with the guys that are, you know, flying first class, and they got the Admirals Club, and they've got Rolexes, and they got the big honorariums, and look, I'll still take all that stuff. I don't care. I won't demand it. If it comes, great. If it doesn't, you know, no big whoop. But and this is something that you can speak to with authority for the last, you know, 3 decades, is that it's all about discipleship, man. It's not about making you great. It's about making them great and passing the baton on to the next generation of hungry soldiers for Christ.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge thing for leaders and all Christians to watch out for is the desire to be recognized, you know, and the capital vices, that's vainglory. You know, you want to get that recognition. But the truth is there's people that need help, and that's the people that we need to be spending time with because they're the potential. I was in Singapore at this big conference, massive conference there, and all these big shots were there, famous people, you know. And then Cindy Jacobs came in. I don't know if you know Cindy Jacobs. She's a prophet and pretty well known. And all the guys are sitting at this table, and I was sitting at a table by myself, and I was reading and just having coffee. And I wasn't like, I don't like those guys. I was like, I'm not in the mood to go do all that. So I just sat by myself in the green room. And Cindy Jacobs came in and said, hey, I heard there was a guy here from Yuma, Arizona. Where's he at? And they all look at her. They're like, oh, he's sitting over there. And it turns out that her dad pastored a church in Yuma, and she lived here in grade school for a while. And so we started talking. It was super cool. She's super sweet. And then, God, what's the singer's name? Worship leader. Your presence is heaven to me. Israel Houghton. You know Israel Houghton?
Yeah.
Fantastic worship leader. You know, he had a divorce and stuff and, you know, whatever. None of that is good. But the guy's an amazing worship leader. Incredible, incredible worship leader. And he's living for Jesus again and doing things right. But, and I've always been like a huge Israel Houghton fan. I feel like he's like a modern day type psalmist. Like his worship songs are really like after the heart of God. You know, I always liked him. But anyway, he was going there with his whole band, and they were leading worship for this conference. And I'm sitting there at the table, and he walks in and said, hey, where's the guy from Yuma? And this was literally 20 minutes after that happened with Cindy Jacobs. And all these famous guys are sitting there, and they point, they go, he's sitting right over there. So he comes over and says, I'm from Yuma. I said, you are? He said, yeah, I learned to lead worship in a church there. And, things didn't go well for me. And I fell away from the Lord. And these people rescued me. And I've been living for Jesus. And now I'm back serving God. And it was so funny because the people that are chasing after recognition and they want people's attention, God connects you with the right people.
Yeah.
In the right place, in the right relationships. We don't have to chase after those things. And you know what? Jesus didn't chase after the money people. He didn't chase after the power people. You want to know why? Because he owned the whole world, everything in it. He owned the earth and everyone on it. He didn't need to try to court people with money. He didn't need to court people with power. He created this earth. And so because he understood that, so what does that have to do with us? We are co-heirs with Christ. He's our king. He owns the world and everything in it. He has all of the power that matters. And we don't have to court those people because we have an audience in heaven with the King of Kings. And so people need to realize that, man. And pastors and leaders need to realize that. Stop trying to go play the game and start helping especially young people. This generation, man, they need to be discipled.
Yeah, it's interesting watching ministers and parachurch ministries glad hand the wealthy. And when I got drugged back into ministry at gunpoint by the Holy Spirit, I was like, again, we all have these propensities to do it because we have vision and we want to do X, Y, and Z, take some scratch to do it. And it's like, I'm not going to, they said, well, if you treat this person this way, then they will, fund and give you the wherewithal to take this show down the road a little bit. It's like, I'm never going to do it. I'm not going to make some frickin', I'm not going to approach anybody like that. If I have a legitimate vision, need, ministry thing, it's like, guys, boom, here it is. If you want to give, yippee-ki-yay, and on to the next one. Same thing with, simple tithe and offering. There's no sob stories. There's no arm twisting. It's like if you want to be blessed, then give. If you want to have your finances cursed, then be stingy. I don't care what you do. I'm just here. I'm just a messenger. But going back to the whole thing before we close this podcast, with people, clamoring for the money folks or the power people, this is something that I've learned for many moons. You can never be sure who you're dealing with. A man who is of little importance and means today can be a person of power tomorrow.
Come on, man.
And
that's
good. So here you are bypassing all these people to get, to, again, the powerful and the pretty people and the wealthy. And you just zoom past, head of state, prophet, some chick who cures cancer. I don't know. And because you in the moment are so fixated that you want to, again, be around the hoity-toity, is that you just flew past tomorrow's leaders and the people that God's going to use.
It's interesting. Yeah, that's totally true. It's interesting because we were in Philippines and I was with a pastor that I was working with. He was mentoring me in cell groups and stuff, and super awesome guy. His name's Ricardo. And we were there and he said, invite this guy to lunch. We're going to spend time. And it was this group of pastors, and we were at a conference that we were putting on. He said, bring them to lunch. And I said, hey, what about that guy back there with the ponytail? And he says, nah, don't bring him. He stands in the back. I said, yeah, but he's very attentive. He's really trying to be where we're at. I said, I think he's just respectful. He goes, I don't think so. I've seen it before. But if you want to invite him, you invite him. That's fine. I said, okay. So I went over there and said, would you like to come to lunch with these pastors? He said, yeah, I would love to. We had a church of 80 people. Well, that guy, and his name's Carlo Panlilio, is a pastor in the Philippines, ended up becoming one of my best friends. His church went from 80 people to thousands of people, and now he leads churches all over the Philippines. And it turned out that he really wanted to be there, but he was just very respectful and wasn't pushing his way in. But God will do that. God will find you. Yeah. You don't have to push your way. And he's an awesome, awesome guy, and has become a really good, really, really good friend of mine We'll be with them in the Philippines here pretty soon. But man, God will make a way for you. You don't have to use, I'm not saying you shouldn't go out and, network and do some things. I'm not saying rule that out, but it's more about the heart. Don't think that you have to do this or you have to do that. God will make a way for you. Jesus didn't do it. He wasn't interested. He came to seek and save that which was lost. The people that are well, they don't need a physician. It's those that are sick. And Jesus came for those that were sick and hurting and lost. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be there for the people who want to listen, the people who have a need, because in due time, Christ died for the ungodly. So if you say, well, I'm not ungodly, well, good, he didn't die for you. So the problem with religion is you start off loving God and you realize you need a savior, but then you become good. And you think you're good now and you don't need a savior. And you wouldn't say that, but you live and act like that. And that self-righteousness, that goes right back to the other point on being a hypocrite. And so we always have to be people who examine ourselves, whether we're in the faith or not, and just be honest with the Lord. And let's make sure that we're the people that are hungry for the word, that we're hungry for the things of God. But we also watch for those people instead of, like you said, Doug glad-handing. I remember we were on a trip together and you were talking to a guy. He actually walked up and started talking to you. I was 5 feet away. I didn't put myself in the conversation. I stepped back. I looked at the guy for 2 seconds and I said, I don't like him. And you got done talking with him and I said, I don't like that guy. And you said, he's a pastor. And I said, I don't like him. And you said, well, you figured him out quick because there's not much to like. That guy is a self-promoter and all those things. But you can feel those things, man. He didn't come to see you because you're his friend. Hey, Doug, how are you? It's like, there's Doug. I must go do this and do that. We don't want to be those kind of people, man. Let's be the people that are interested in the people Jesus is interested in.
Yeah, so here's a challenge, and God's probably going to make me eat it probably by Wednesday, maybe Thursday. So ministers out there, you got an opportunity. You can meet with Daddy Warbucks, who could really pump some Benjamins into your fetid vision, or you can hang out with a dude or a chick that's been married 5 times and out in the middle of nowhere and talk to her about living water. So which one do you want to do?
Yeah. One became a great evangelist the same day.
Crazy. Hey, Rich, aside from being Christ-like and crucifying our disgustingly gross and nasty flesh, what else should the Warrior and Wildmen listener do?
Go to warriorsandwildmen.com, subscribe. We'll send you a couple emails a week. It's free. Let you know what's happening, how to stay in contact with us. Listen wherever you listen, but make sure to subscribe and stay up to date. If you want to help support the ministry, go to the War Chest. It's tax deductible. When you give your gift, we'll send you that information. For those that are doing that, you guys are awesome. Warriors and Wildmen out.